Welcome, everybody, to Indiana Basketball Weekly on the Gruely True Sports Network. I'm your host for Indiana Basketball Weekly, Mike Goodpaster, and right now, I would like to welcome, as always, my co-host, the world-famous, at least in his house, Kent Sterling. How you doing, Kent?
You know what? I am undaunted. As they say in the IU fight song, we're undaunted. Yes, a 1-point loss today, but that's okay. This was the best 40 minutes they've played on the road that I've seen maybe since the Michigan State game last year. This was really, they played well enough to win at Illinois against a well-coached team with a guy in the middle who was very disruptive. The result isn't what we wanted, and we're never going to be happy with the loss, but this overall, the level of play was really good.
They lost.
Yes, they did.
That's all.
But you know what?
Lost.
Yep. But you know what? It wasn't what happened at Purdue.
What's the difference?
And it wasn't what happened at Penn State. This was 40 minutes of those guys at all five spots balling out, and I'm cool with that. I'm not cool with the loss. I'm cool with the effort.
Okay. But this isn't like third-grade basketball either.
No, but I mean, my God, we've got to, I'm not saying that anybody has to have a parade for these guys or hang a banner or cut down the nets when they get back to Bloomington. But this was, to me, a massive step in the right direction if they can just maintain that momentum. That was a good Illinois team that they played at their place. They kind of got hosed by the refs, but I don't want to hear about it because, you know what, that's not what determined the result of the game. They just came up one play short, a couple of foul shots short. You know what? That's basketball. And while they should obsess over the why, I'm not going to obsess over the why.
Okay. My why is this is Archie Miller's fault.
Well, what do you do now? Which thing?
He loses his shit constantly, Kent. In presser situations, I mean, you see him after Al Durham didn't make the cut he wanted. He's screaming in his face. I mean, sit his ass down then. Don't let him go back on the court. I mean, but once again, if you lose your crap as the coach, especially the last few seconds, I mean, that's why your team loses close games. This team has lost a few close games this year, Kent. And
that's why they crapped the bed late.
Years. Yeah,
I'm with you. They crapped the bed late. They did it against Maryland. They did it against Illinois today, where that you look at what Finney did with the basketball after Trace Jackson Davis kicked it back to him on that the missed foul shot, and he didn't look like he was ready to do anything. And we get back to Bob Knight every once in a while, and this is a good place to do it. You coach your guys for late game situations, so they're utterly confident in what they're going to do in those situations. And clearly, for whatever reason, that's just not happening.
Well, I think that the times I saw Coach Knight use a timeout, it was in the last 6 seconds when you surprisingly get the ball back and everybody's running around like they're like a chicken with their head cut off. So I think right there, as soon as Finney got that ball out there, a timeout should have been called. You only had 6 or 7 seconds left in the game. And at 6 or 7 seconds, somebody's just going to have to go one-on-one. So to me, I would want to call a timeout and set something up to go into Trace Jackson Davis so he could get fouled and miss 2 more free throws.
Given the result, I totally agree. But you know what? What else you had? You had Illinois without any idea what they were doing at all. The floor was unbalanced. You were going to get a pretty good look if Finney doesn't trip over that kid's foot. And so those are the moments when all hell's breaking loose and there's chaos on the floor. If you've got a team that's confident late and understands what to do in those moments when everybody shits the bed, you got an opportunity to exploit that. And that's one of those things that Knight used to do. They were always better prepared. So why call it time? I didn't get the timeout when he yelled at Durham. I know that they looked like they weren't ready to execute what Miller called. But actually, that timeout was okay. The timeout with 4.5 seconds left before the foul shots, I kind of didn't get. I'd like to put myself in a position where if I threw a pass deep, I could call a timeout and then run some kind of half-court set. But that's just me.
Well, how about this? At 2 points, though, I would have used the timeout, number one. If he'd have missed a free throw, it was a 1-and-1. If you use the timeout and he misses the free throw, you use the timeout. It gives you a chance to set something up. If he makes the free throw, you call the timeout then and let him think about it, and then you can design something in case the ball comes off the rim and you're down by 3 points. But I just think overall, I will agree with you this. I think the players played well. I think the difference is this. You said it. Brad Underwood's a good basketball coach.
Yeah.
And even though the field was unbalanced or the court was unbalanced, those guys recovered and had pressure on Fitzy immediately. If they would have not had the pressure on him immediately, he probably doesn't dribble the ball off his foot.
You know what? He could have shot, too. And there was that option. I like him late, taking shots. Obviously, he knocked down a buzzer beater to get it from 4-1. And we saw what he did last year against Butler, hitting a late shot. And Rob Fitzy taking that shot after the ball came back to him from Trace, that doesn't bother me at all. But it looked like they weren't prepared for the chaos. And so you're right. If you don't prepare your team for chaos, you got to walk them through it or stop it. And you do that with a timeout. So, they could have won, didn't win, good effort. I get it.
Well, my daddy always told me this. You never get congratulated for effort because that's the one given, or should be.
Well, you know what? That's true. But given what Indiana has been and given their paucity of effort throughout the season periodically, I enjoyed watching this game. And that's in stark contrast to many of their losses. The loss at Penn State and at Purdue, especially galling, where they only scored 48. But what happened? You know what? I'm telling you, it's 66 points. You get to 66, you're going to get the win. Did they get to 66?
Yeah.
At the end, right. Okay. So this is the second game they've lost this season while getting to 66. I like the effort. The thing that I didn't like, I kind of get it. I mean, you talk about a cup half full, cup half empty. That's sort of Devontae Green, and hitting the 2 threes were huge. And then he comes back and he turns the ball over. He goes on the other end and makes a terrible defensive play and then turns it over again. So you've got him hitting the 2 threes in back-to-back possessions, I think. And then just a little bit later, maybe a minute later, he goes through three terrible possessions where he absolutely caused Indiana not to get a good look. It was a hurried shot, then a foul, then a turnover.
Yeah,
and that's horrible. You can't have that.
Yeah, but he also kept us in the game by getting the 2 assists on the 2 threes.
Yeah, he sure did.
And those were back-to-back possessions, and he just is what he is.
Which is a guy where he is going to cause you to lose and he's going to cause you to win.
Yeah,
he's going to cause you to do one or the other, and I'm not with that. That's not the kind of basketball I like to watch guys play. It's kind of like a much less talented version of Allen Iverson. You were going to win because of Allen Iverson if you were the 76ers, or you were going to lose. And
but
it's
the
kind
thing
of that
is
way with James
those
Harden.
76ers teams, if you remember, with Allen Iverson, had nothing else. So you were either going to win with him or you were going to lose either way. So you might as well let him do whatever he wants. And
they did. He did take him to the finals once, but other than that, Allen
but with
Iverson
the talent
was crazy
he had,
talented.
he got him in the playoffs almost every year. And if you remember in that finals, was it 2001 or 2002, that game 1 where he went off for like 30 in the second half and actually won game 1 at the Forum in L.A. So I think there is a huge put it like this, if Devontae Green was Allen Iverson, we would be 25-4 right now.
Well, you know what I'm saying. I'm just saying that this is the guy who is going to be the reason for the result on one level or another. And it could be, it could be he is both great and terrible in the same game at such a level that he's almost always going to be the bellwether that you have to count on for whatever happens.
Well, could that be just because he's one of the few guys here that's willing to try to take or to make the play when the game's on the line?
Oh, no, because it's not when the game's on the line that I got a problem with him. It's with 13 minutes left in the game where he puts together 3 absolute crap possessions on both ends. And all of a sudden, a 2-point lead becomes a 4-point deficit. And then at the end of the game, you're wondering, why are we down by 2 or why are we down by 4? Well, you can kind of trace it back to that stupidity.
You're ignoring the fact of the back-to-back threes and the back-to-back possessions where he got the guys open for the threes too, though.
Yeah, I'm not ignoring it. I'm just saying that you're always going to, and this goes back to Bob Knight too, is that victory favors the team that makes the fewest mistakes. Devontae Green is almost always the author of the most mistakes for Indiana.
Yeah, but the thing is this. That is not always true because if you look at this game, Indiana had 10 turnovers. Illinois had 7. But Illinois shot terrible from the free throw line. I think what this was two teams, one slightly better coached than the other one.
Yeah, and it was a coin flip at the end.
And Coburn,
so like I said in the
beginning,
when you've got a guy down low who's that disruptive, it's going to cause you problems unless you're, knocking down threes in bunches. And today when Indiana went to the rack, and Coburn was in the game, you had a problem getting the ball up on the rim for sure.
Yeah, and when Joey Brunk's in the game, you can't guard Coburn because I bet in those 8 minutes that Brunk played, probably 10 of Coburn's 15 points were scored.
Well, there is that, but I don't think that anybody really had their way against him. I think Race did a nice job trying to get it done and bodying up on him a little bit, but nobody's going to keep him off the glass. And then on the defensive end, he's just that guy that accounting for him if you're Indiana and you're trying to get to the rim is just, that's more than they can bear.
Yeah, and I would like to see Race and Jerome play more.
Jerome was really good, and that's not just hitting those 2 threes. I thought that he played really well on the defensive end, and he gives you another guy like Justin Smith who can guard 4 spots. They're very versatile defensively, especially when they have both guys in the game at the same time, which rarely happens. And Armand Franklin's another guy offensively. He's making some mistakes, but on the defensive end, he's really pretty gritty and another guy who can, he can defend 2 or 3 spots. So I like this team defensively.
Now, the problem I see is we are now tied with Purdue, which I think would mean we would be playing a first-round Big Ten game right now, right? Because wouldn't they take the tiebreaker from beating our brains in twice?
I don't know how they do it in the Big Ten. Tiebreakers always mystify me. Everybody does it differently. In the Valley, I was watching Northern Iowa and Drake. And because Northern Illinois won and they've got the better net rating, then they win the Valley and they win the tiebreaker over Loyola. So I don't know exactly how they do it. But they're going to win the last 2 home games. And then they're going to be 10-10. And everything's going to be okay.
So you think they're going to beat Wisconsin, huh? Because you laughed right after you said it. And I'm not convinced they'll beat Minnesota. I think they will. They should. But this is Indiana. At least Richard Pitino's a worse coach than, our guy. So that helps.
You know what, though? Like last year, even though they win their last 4 regular season games, I felt like they were just playing loose and free because they knew all was kind of lost. And they almost played their way into a tournament berth. But this is a team that I think's got a little bit more fight in it. And so I think that they're going to play Wednesday and Saturday at kind of the level that they did today. They're playing for something. I think they get this done. I think they win both those games, go to 10-10, and wind up going to the tournament.
So 10-10 gets them in if they lose the first round?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. They were a 9 seed today. They lose by 1 to Illinois.
Oh, somebody said they're a 9 seed, Kent. That don't mean they're right.
Well, no, but a lot of people say they're a 9 or a 10, and usually Lenardi's right. And DeCourcy said they're a 9, and DeCourcy is not playing favorites with Indiana. I know they're not, a substitute for the rationale of the committee.
Yeah, but how about this? Right now, after losing this game, what would they be?
Yeah, I think they're still a 9. I mean, I have no idea why you'd grade them down.
They're a 9
Why would
seed.
why would anybody grade them down because they lose a game at Illinois to
lost?
what on paper is a better team. Well, wait a minute. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, what doesn't make any sense to me is the fact that they can't win on the road, but yet we're going to upgrade them because they lost a close game. They still lost.
Well, I'm not saying they're upgraded. I'm saying they stay static. I'm not going to grade them down.
I don't think they stay static, though. I think they're a 10 or an 11.
I thought they should have been graded down because of the loss to Purdue and the way that they played. I mean, losing by 8, but scoring only 49. This was a really good game. I thought they played well and acquitted themselves well in a hostile environment. I got no problem with that. I don't know why that would cause them to fall to a 10 or an 11 because they lose on the road to a team that on paper is better.
Well, I would say because they can't win on the road, which tells me the NCAA tournament will be a waste of time for them.
Well, yeah, but for, how many teams? 34 teams, it's going to be a waste of time, or 36 or whatever, who aren't going to get to the round of 32. So, but I would agree. I mean, they're not going to win games once they get to the tournament. And they sure aren't going to win 2 if they're a 9 seed. And in the second, even if they win against an 8, then they got to go up against a 1 in the second round. They're not going to win that game. I don't think that there are, like if they had to play anybody in the top 15 on a neutral court with all the chips on the table, I don't think they win against any of them. So, yeah, I would agree with that.
Who do you think they would beat in the top 20?
Oh, God. Florida State? I don't know. They beat Florida State.
There's no way they would beat Florida State again.
Michigan State. We own Michigan State's ass.
Unless it's the tournament. Who you want there, Tom Izzo or Archie
we know that's
Miller?
Going to be quick.
Hey, Archie did break his clipboard last week, so that's a good thing.
He did. He's getting madder. At least publicly, he's getting more angry. I'll bet behind closed doors he's not. He's kind of irascible also. Man, does that guy sweat? My God almighty, if I sweated like that and ran through shirts the way he does, I'd probably get a little bit pissed off too.
Well, see, you're never supposed to let him see you sweat, from what I remember.
He's giving that towel workout. I don't know how many towels he goes through, but he's the managers, I'm sure, have to have a nice fresh stack for every game.
All right. So how sure are you they beat Minnesota?
Oh, probably 80%.
Really? That much?
Yeah. I think they're going to beat Minnesota. They know what they're doing. Like Richard Pitino's on his way out. This is a fait accompli.
Hey,
they know
their
season's
wait a second,
over.
Though, because this is a team earlier in the week that only lost by a point to Maryland. Of course, they crapped their pants to do it.
Right.
They lost by 3 to Iowa. They lost by 6 to Penn State. So it's not like they get blown out all the time.
No, and their KenPom number is okay. They're ranked, I think, just inside the top 30. But, Pitino, I think, is going to be fired. And this team, they know they're going nowhere fast. I don't see – I'm not saying that Indiana is going to just waltz right over the top of them. But if Indiana can beat, an Iowa and a Michigan State at home, I got to think that they're going to beat Minnesota. And then you got Wisconsin, which is going to be a little bit tougher. That's going to be an interesting game. But I think they get that win, too. I think they can win at home. I think they can beat good teams at home.
Mm-hmm. They can also lose to good teams at home because they've done that too this year. The Maryland game is still the kicker in this entire thing.
Yeah, it is. You're right.
And you throw this one in now too. I mean, if you got to win over Maryland against the win against Illinois, you're probably sitting as a 5 or 6 seed.
Yeah, they're 10-8 with 2 winnable games down the stretch to go maybe 12-8, and you're looking at maybe you're maybe looking at a bye to Friday as one of the top 4 seeds in the conference. So. Yeah, those are 4 big points that really could have changed this season.
Yeah, but that's why bad teams lose those games.
Well, I don't think they're a bad team, though.
Yeah, they are.
They're not bad.
I think this, for what I've seen, I think 80% of college basketball teams are bad right now.
Well, they're all pretty damn mediocre, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And the officiating never does anybody any favors.
The only thing I saw today that bothered me was not giving the guy technical when he swung his arm at Rob Finney and then kind of got in his face. Because we all know Rob Finney is probably not looking to get in a fight.
No, he's a pretty stoic character. And I didn't like, although there are times when they don't call that little tap on the elbow where they got Durham on the elbow. The non-trip didn't bother me because the guy's foot was just there and Rob kind of just moved over it. I think that's just the way things go. But if you're going to rely on officiating to get you out of a fix, that's a fool's errand, because the officiating isn't going to be very good. It's not very good. Whining about it doesn't help, and you can't fix it. So what are you going to do?
Yeah. So what are we going to do, Ken? We're going to do a show. What is that? Wednesday? You want to do the show Thursday or Wednesday?
Sure. Whatever you say, Chief.
What time is the game on Wednesday?
The game on Wednesday? Wow, I have not looked that far ahead. I'll find out.
7 o'clock.
Is it?
Yeah.
Dude,
hey,
how about
this? I can't even watch that game. I'm interviewing Bobby Plump Wednesday at 7.
But he's still a great dude.
Yeah.
I interviewed him. It had to be. It was more than 10 years ago. So how old is Bobby?
84.
This was when Bobby, I think he was 69. So this was 15 years ago, and he had just gotten off the court. He was still playing pickup basketball at the age of 69, and he said he was still a really, really good shooter. How much fun would it be to walk into a gym and see Bobby Plump running up and down, like in 2005, running up and down the floor, knocking down shots?
Hey, from what his son told me, he did an interview at Hinkle like 3 or 4 months ago. And stood out there and hit like 20 free throws in a row.
I don't doubt that at all. He's a great dude. His restaurant, I've spent a good deal of time at his restaurant / bar.
Plump / shot or something?
Yep. Good bluegill. Really good. Like they know how to fry fish.
You don't see too many restaurants with bluegill. At least not around here.
No. I like Bobby a lot. Terrific dude.
Yeah, we're going to try to get him as a sponsor on either this show, or I'm going to start that Legends of Hoosier Hysteria show we talked about, and we are going to start that off with Bobby Plump on Wednesday night at 7. If anybody wants to listen in, just follow along at Grueling Truth.
I should have reserved my positive comments about the restaurant until he wrote a check. Well, I didn't know he was in the game to write checks.
We don't know yet. It's somebody may bring it up though. But, you never know. It doesn't take much to buy me. Yeah. So you know what? I didn't realize this, Kent, but I was on Amazon today and I found out that you wrote a book called "Oops." You want to tell the listeners about it?
You know what? This is about mistakes, and this is the book that I think Archie Miller is destined to write. It's all about mistakes.
Make sure you copyright it, because his will sell a lot of copies in Indiana.
Oops, the art of learning from mistakes and adventures. I've made some mistakes, some in business, some in media. So there's some media stories in there that I think are interesting and instructional. So if you want to pick that up and read it, then you won't have to make the mistakes I did or have the adventures I did to learn from them, and you can just learn from mine.
All right. So, Indiana's in 11th place in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
We just had a listener, Bobby, who just reminded us. Tell Kent they're in 11th place.
They are. But you know what? And I know what is that? If ifs and whats were nuts and buts or whatever, I don't know how that.
We'd have a party one way or the other.
Works.
I don't know how the saying goes either. But
yeah, I was going in the wrong direction from it. When you start talking about nuts and buts, I'm not sure how that story ends. But Indiana played better today, and I'm not saying to feel good about it. I'm not saying to be happy in 11th place. I'm saying that Indiana played better basketball today, and for 40 minutes the effort was there. Nobody hung their head. Nobody was kind of loping into a defensive possession. They played hard. They weren't very composed down the stretch, and so they lost a game that could have been a win. And that's what else? How else do you break that down?
All right. How about this? We got another question from Bobby. Looks like he's somewhere in California. He wants to know, because he listens to the show, and he, number one, said, if, come on. And then he said, if Archie needs more than 3 years, why is Mick Cronin in first in the Pac-12 in his first year?
Yeah, I don't know what McCronin had. I'm not that plugged into what
He didn't have
UCLA
much.
does.
He didn't have much.
And I know that, this is Brad's third year. This is Holtman's third year. This is Chris Mack's third year. A lot of guys in their third year. And it's fair to compare these guys. But what's going on at Indiana is a complete cultural shift, not a reprogramming of Indiana basketball, but it's a complete cultural shift. Tom Crean could not recruit anybody in the state of Indiana at a higher level than Grant Galen from Crown Point, and because of that, Indiana kind of fell on some hard times, and there was no way to get out of it. So they fired Tom. They bring in Archie. Archie's recruiting the hell out of Indiana, bringing guys in who understand basketball and are able to be basketball players instead of athletes who are playing basketball. And this thing is going to pivot. And it may not be, obviously, it's likely not to happen this year, but I think next year you're going to see Indiana swing toward the positive. And any talk about letting him go, I think is crazy at this point, because we'd be right in the same soup. Tom Ostrom has done a really, really good job, along with Archie, building terrific relationships inside the state of Indiana, where guys from Indiana at the highest level are pledging Indiana, and that's how Indiana wins. So that's, I'm not saying that they're going to hang a sixth banner anytime in the next couple of years, but this is going to continue to evolve positively.
Are you saying that someday under Archie Miller they will hang a sixth banner?
No, you got to get so much to go right? Even to hang the fifth. I mean, we remember 1987. Yeah, they're down 9 with 4.5 minutes to play to LSU.
But you know why they won
that game?
Because they were composed and they were well coached, and that's how you win championships. That's how Dukes won them. That's how John Wooden won them. That's how Bob Knight won them.
Yeah, but Joe Hillman coming in playing 1 minute and getting that 3-point play, that was nice. Things worked out for Indiana at the end of that game.
Okay.
But all I'm saying is that you need breaks to win national championships.
Yeah, but the only way to get breaks is to be prepared. Because people that aren't prepared are not ready to take advantage of the breaks when they come their way. Those Indiana teams won because they were prepared. And if you're prepared, you get the breaks. If you're not prepared, the breaks usually go against you.
As they did today for Indiana. I think that's going to pivot too. So I have no empirical data that would suggest that Archie Miller is suddenly going to become a guy who prepares teams better. I just think that as he recruits Indiana at a higher level, there are going to be more people who are wearing Indiana jerseys who understand how to play the game. And that's going to give them a huge leg up over what they've got right now.
Okay, but you've got the majority of this roster is still from Indiana right now, aren't they?
Yeah, but they're young. Like the Indiana.
But wait a second, Kent, because you just said that if you recruit Indiana players, they know how to play the game.
Correct.
So why would they be too young to play it?
I'm saying that physically, college seniors are physically demonstrably different than college freshmen and sophomores. He's had 2 recruiting classes, and that's where this is. So you've got Trace Jackson Davis, who is probably number 2 in the Big Ten as far as freshman of the year. And you've got Armand Franklin, and then you've got Rob Finney and Demezy Anderson.
Yeah,
right?
That don't sound very impressive.
No, but if you keep doing that, if you keep stocking the shelves and you keep getting guys to commit like Christian Lander and like Anthony Leal and Trey Galloway, you keep arcing in the right direction. And old guy, you get old, you stay old, and all of a sudden you're winning games like this that you would lose otherwise. This is a young team. It's just that's the way it is. And hopefully next year, with a year underneath them and losses like the ones that they had against Maryland and today against Illinois, they come out the other end and they learn from it and they get better because of it.
But shouldn't the older guys have already learned from it because they're coached by Archie for 3 years now?
Yeah, but that assumes, I think that you could drill like basketball 101 to Devontae Green from now until about 2038, and you would still have the same guy doing the same stuff, both good and bad, on either end of the floor. There are some guys who just, and I'll give you a good, for instance, from an NBA perspective. All right, there's a lot of talk in Indianapolis about Miles Turner and Domas Sabonis. Which of those two guys would be the most likely for the Pacers to keep? Domas Sabonis is a basketball player. Miles Turner is a 6'11" big, tall guy who's not a bad athlete, but he is not a basketball player. He can shoot it. He can do all the stuff. But as far as like an innate understanding of the game, Domas Sabonis has that in his DNA. Miles Turner doesn't. You've got those guys. Domas Sabonis, to me, is an Indiana basketball player. Miles Turner is a Texas basketball player, whatever that means to you. And that's not a rip on Miles Turner, but guys who know the game and get the game, and you know that, those guys, you can go win with those guys. You can just explain stuff to them once, and they just get it. You know, there are guys with that faculty.
We don't have anybody in this team where Archie's explained to them once and they get it.
Well, I don't know that. I don't know that Rob doesn't understand, and I don't know.
You know what?
I don't know that Armand doesn't.
You can understand basketball better than anybody in the world, but if you can't make a free throw in the last 5 seconds of a tie game or a game where you're down by 2, it don't matter. And in Rob Fantasy, you got to put the ball in the basket, and we can say we want him taking that last shot with 3 seconds left, but a lot of times you don't get to because you can't make the shot with 20 minutes left.
No quibble here. Nope. But I'm just telling you, this team's going to get better. So I'm not, I guess I'm not one of those guys who, after a close loss, maybe I'm not depressed enough. And when they win while playing poorly, like they did against UConn or against Notre Dame, if Notre Dame doesn't play that sappy ass zone for, half the game, there's no way Indiana wins that. Mike Bray, that loss is on Mike Bray. But anyway, I wasn't happy about those wins, and I'm not completely despondent over this loss or over the loss against Maryland. I think they're good winning moment or because learning moments.
I expect them to lose close games because they never learn. Because if they would have learned from losing moments, they would have learned from Maryland, and they obviously didn't because they lost today in a close game.
Learning's a process. It's not just a one game travail and all of a sudden everything's fixed.
Well, I can tell you this. Last night, I was talking to the Gruely Truth's friend and resident, sports gambler, Bobby Sheridan, and he asked me what I thought of the game. Yeah. And he thought the same thing I did. You probably take the points because Indiana will be good enough and play just good enough to get close, but in the end, they won't be coached good enough to win the game.
You can look at it that way. And that was borne out to be accurate. So, whether it's coaching or whether it's the guys, there was, over the course of the last 30 seconds, they shit the bed and they lost.
I will put it this way. Anytime my team wins, it's because my players are really good. Anytime my team loses, it's because I did not have them ready to win. It is never the player's fault. It is always my fault if I'm the coach. At least that's how I've always looked at it.
Right, but that's not accurate.
Yes, it is. It is completely accurate. Yes, it is.
Well, no, it isn't. I mean, I give you this. Like I always heard this from a guy named Lou Boudreau, who's a baseball Hall of Famer and passed on now. But when he was a broadcaster, he said that in Major League Baseball, a bad manager is going to lose you 25 games.
Baseball,
a good manager is going to win you 4.
Yeah, that's baseball.
But, what he's saying is that scheme is far less important than the guys.
No, scheme is far less important than anything with baseball. Because if I got a pitcher that could strike everybody out, it doesn't matter how good a coach I am. I think football, it matters more than any other sport. But basketball, it does matter. And I can tell you this, I've never lost a game where I thought it was the kid's fault. Never. And you can do this, though. If you Google me, you find out I very rarely lose, Kent.
Well, and I believe that. But you know what? There are instances where players get you beat. And there are instances where coaches, because they do the right thing in practice and drilling guys and teaching and implementing the right scheme, especially in football, where they win games for you. I mean, that's true. I know it's not about the X's and the O's. It's about the Jimmies and the Joes. I know all that.
And a lot of times it's more about the mentality of the Jimmies and the Joes and the X's and the O's more than it is about the playing or the drawing of the X's and O's. Everything in sports is mental. So to be a great coach, it's not really about the X's and O's or anything else. It's about you being able to relate to each player on a mental level that connects with them. A good coach can do that with almost anybody. And if they can't, they get rid of that person. A bad coach will be able to connect with Trace Jackson Davis and maybe Rob Fennessy, but he can't get Devontae Green because he doesn't understand how to get to him. And I have found very few guys, whether they were 8th graders, high school players, or professional players, I found very few people where if you get to know them, you can't figure out what makes them tick. So my question is, with Archie, is his relationship with his players just about basketball? Because most coaches that have teams that don't get it done at the end of games is because they don't have a deep enough connection with their kids. Because if you have guys on your team that really care about you and you really care about them, those teams are damn near impossible to beat when it gets down to the end of games.
Yeah, I'll speak for you here too. I mean, we can suppose a lot of that stuff, but not being at practice ever because we're not allowed at practice
exactly.
ever. Not being
now,
in
why
the
aren't we allowed
ever,
at
we
practice?
We have no
Ken?
idea.
Why aren't we allowed at practice?
That's a great question.
I can tell you what my
Indiana
suggestion
thing. I mean,
is. You were either. Go ahead. Sorry.
Crean never allowed anybody to practice.
Exactly.
I can't remember the last coach at Indiana who was like, hey, come on in, take a look.
Well, this is the thing. To me, a coach that is afraid for you to watch him practice is either one, paranoid somebody's going to see something, which isn't true. Everything's on film anyways. Or, number two, they don't want you to know what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
totally
just
agree.
like if my son is on a high school basketball team or football team and that coach will not allow me to be at practice, I wonder what the hell's going on, because there's something wrong with that. Inherently, there's something wrong with that. I mean, if I send my kid to Indiana University for Coach Miller to take care of him, but I come to practice and they'll only let me in right at the very end to watch my son practice,
yeah,
I think that's a problem.
Although that's the way it works at most places.
I know.
Like even at Butler, they don't. The media, what the hell do we know? Like we're going to walk in and know they're running flex against, when Xavier does X, like we're going to call Travis and say, hey, Travis, that never happens. I mean, that level of paranoia is just silly, but it's rampant in coaching, and to the point where I guess what you're trying to do is you're trying to eliminate as many ways as possible that things could possibly go wrong.
Well, how about this? At Xavier, Travis Steele last year, he was a little over 500, but he started off really bad.
Right.
A lot of people thought they were a top 20 team this year. The one thing I can tell you is this. Even though they have underachieved to the expectations, I think they're like 19-10 right now. The thing about Xavier is, and the thing Travis Steele has done is, he doesn't let everybody, into his practices whenever they want. But if he has a media day on a Friday and they're playing Villanova on a Saturday, the entire media will then be allowed to come in and watch the entire hour-and-a-half shoot-around the walkthrough. And I think the great thing about that is, number one, he is really good with the media. He answers whatever. He doesn't get mad about anything. Tom Iser, who's the SID there, is great. You could ask him something that you may not be able to ask Archie Miller and be able to come back for another game, if you know what I mean. And I think with that transparency, though, comes the fact that he is given more rope to hang himself than Archie Miller is, because Archie Miller comes off as some asshole hothead that, thinks he's better than everybody else. And in Indiana, that'll kill you.
Here's one place where I'll argue with you, and this goes back to a couple of minutes ago. I would not want parents at my practice. I don't want, whether I'm a high school coach, college coach, whatever level, I don't want parents there because I don't want to have to fight with these kids for their attention.
You don't have to fight with them for their intention, because what you do is your culture is your first parent meeting. You tell them you can come in and watch the practices. If at any point you're disruptive, you will leave. And the reason I've always done that is, especially with high school teams, is because, if you see that little Johnny really sucks before the game and he's sitting on the bench, you'll know why he's sitting on the bench. And nothing is a distraction unless you allow it to be a distraction as a coach.
Well, and that depends on the relationship between the kid and the parent, because there are parents who are just going to sit there quietly, and the kid's going to look up into the stands at the parent, and then nothing good comes from it. To me, nothing good comes from having a parent watch anything.
So you think that it's good for the parent to be in the dark and just go by what the kid goes home and tells him why he's not playing?
I think it would be great if we could roll back the clock 40 years to where parents did not give a shit less about watching their kid do anything. When parents brought books to games because the kid needed a ride home and the parent needed to do something during the game. I think that sports would be so much better if parents would disconnect completely from sports rather than gunk it all up for the kids.
The problem now is this, though. You can't trust your coaches or teachers with your kids. Watch TV. I mean, there's something going on. I mean, that is my big issue here, is I don't want people that have to wonder what's going on with my stuff. And I can tell you this, Kent, I've ran practices like this since 1992, and I can tell you that I've never had an issue with any parent, ever. And it always and I don't have a problem with a parent coming up and asking me why his kid's not playing, because I will bluntly tell him why he's not playing. And, this is the thing.
And that'll be the last time the parent asks, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and when I go to a new school or a new team and coach, I'll have people ask me, why is little Johnny not playing? Well, he's fat and he's slow. Get him to lose some weight, get him a little tougher, and he can play. That's simple. I mean, why do I want to lie to him? Well, Johnny's a little slow, so I don't care. And the thing is this, I mean, if every place I win, I was like a 500 coach, I'd probably get my ass fired for it, but everybody knows what they get when they get there. Archie Miller is at Indiana University. He needs to relate better, not just with his team, because as you said, we don't know there, but he needs to relate better with media. He needs to relate better with everybody. And you cannot, as a coach, in the last 10 seconds of a game, lose your crap because somebody did something wrong. Because players, when you are the head coach and you're the leader of that team, if you lose your crap, they lose confidence.
Archie Miller is never going to be that guy. Archie Miller is wired to not give a damn about what anybody thinks.
I know. That's the problem. Now, see, that's all right for Bobby Knight, because Bobby Knight was a basketball savant.
Right.
If you know what I mean. But with most people, if you go around not giving a damn what they think about you, and you don't win at a high level, you usually end up going and coaching at Valparaiso.
Well, and it happens the other way, too. Like, no coach I've ever been around cared more about what people said or thought about him than Tom Crean. And he got fired, too.
No, this is the thing. It's not that I care what other people think or say. I just want them to think I do. Because I really don't give a damn what anybody thinks or says, because I'm going to do what I want to do. But you have to have the personality as a coach to at least put a smile on your face in front of the media, give them direct answers. Because this is the other thing. In Indiana, and I know Mike DeCourcy and a bunch of these guys that talk crap about Indiana fans, ain't nobody know more about college basketball or basketball in general than Indiana fans.
Correct.
And they know if you're giving them a line of crap.
Right.
So you might as well just tell them the truth. And I will give you
that
this.
Would be,
yeah, and
that would be perfect.
I thought they played great today, but it wasn't good enough. And any time it wasn't good enough, especially this time of year when you're trying to get into a tournament we haven't been into in a few years, I have a hard time taking any silver lining out of that, because there comes a point in the season where you just got to get it done or you don't. You know, it's the old shit or get off the pot.
Right.
So.
And they didn't today.
Well, we did. We shit, but it was down our leg at the free throw line.
And then they, that's the truth. I couldn't tell, although there's no way he tried to miss the second one. But I was thinking at the time, do you make, do you miss? and he missed, but he's not a good enough foul shooter to miss on purpose correctly, although it wound up being perfect.
Well, how about this? But no, there's no way there's too much time left there, especially since you had a timeout still. But of course, we burnt that immediately.
And I didn't like that either. I didn't like taking the shot with 13 seconds left. I thought that was way too much time.
Especially on the road.
Yeah.
At home,
go win
maybe.
the damn thing.
Yeah. But,
right.
And we need Devontae Green to hit that shot.
Yeah, right. You got to have balls if you're a coach. Right. I always heard this. Dan would tell me this story about Dockich, would tell me a story about Knight. He's told it on the air, too. About Knight in the Final Four in that game where Teddy Valentine kind of took Calvert out of it with that offensive foul, which was his third foul in the first half. And Leary shot them back into the game, hitting 3 straight threes.
Yeah, the last
so
minute
there's
or two.
And there's a timeout, and so Knight draws it up and says, all right, and after Todd hits that 3, here's what we're going to do. And this was before, but he was like, this is what's going to happen. And you try to speak it into the truth. Archie always kind of looks
like he's hoping.
He's living in hope and dying in desperation. And I think that players get that. Now that desperation may come from a good, honest place, but I think you got to be a little bit of an actor with your kids and let them know that, you know what, this is what's going to happen. Whether you believe it can happen or not, you've got to make them believe. And I think that is a place where there's that's a place where Miller can improve if that's possible.
All right, Center 46 minutes and 33 seconds. We have agreed.
And we could go another 46 minutes and probably not agree again.
46 minutes from now, I'll think Archie's great and you'll think he sucks. So,
and you know what? It's not like I'm some kind of Archie apologist, but what I understand, and maybe this is just how I continue to enjoy watching Indiana games, is knowing that there is no way that man is going to be fired before March of 2022, no matter what the hell happens. It's just not financially possible with the buyout as it exists.
Yes, it is.
So I'm trying to see light at the end of the tunnel and believe it's not an oncoming train.
The Indiana Sports Department brought in over $100 million last year. It's possible if they want it to happen.
Yeah, that's not the way they work.
I know, because they're in Indiana.
They don't spend money like that.
Doesn't mean what it used to mean.
Well, and with Michael McRobbie being the president of the university, it won't mean that. You know, so that's another topic.
They'll drop a ton of money on a weight room for a football team that's never going to go better than 8-4, though.
But you know what? A lot of that money did not come from the university. It's like the renovation of Assembly Hall came from.
You could probably find a bunch of businesses that would pitch in if you could get Brad Stevens.
Well. You know what? Mark Cuban, probably. You've got Mark Cuban putting the money into the Cuban Sports Media Center.
If you wanted to get this done easy enough, you could get it done.
Well, yeah, but they don't. They'll do it for buildings. They will not. I don't see it. I mean, it didn't happen with Crean.
Yeah.
And
right there may be the biggest problem because they'll do it for buildings that they can make more money off of. But I just think it's to the point where they don't ever want to. I don't think the administration wants the basketball program to be as big as what it once was.
That's part of an issue that I don't know still. I know it used to exist. I don't know if that exists anymore.
But if it does, it could tell you why Archie gets so frustrated.
I don't think anybody. Look, this is something that's true too. Is that nobody spent more money than Tom Crean. Like that, nobody in the Big Ten. Indiana was the best funded operation from a recruiting perspective. Bo Ryan up at Wisconsin was spending $60,000 for an entire year. Crean's going like $700,000. When Crean wanted to go see John Harbaugh's team, his Ravens team, play one Sunday in October, I think it was October, he got the plane. The plane flew the entire team to Baltimore, put them up, and they went and practiced in Baltimore so Crean wouldn't and the kids wouldn't miss a practice. They've had, like Fred Glass just nods up and down and says, okay, to expenses, where at other schools, I think Crean would have been told to pound salt.
Well, he eventually was, anyways. Now he's
yeah, he
pounded
was.
in Georgia. What's their record in Georgia?
Yeah, I think in the SEC, they were 4-14 the other day. I don't know if they've played since. And that's with the number one player overall in the NBA draft that's
Big
coming
East
up.
Either, so.
No, he is a product of his own imagination and confidence in a way that I wish I had that level of confidence in me, whether it was deserved or not. I wish I felt about me the way Tom Crean feels about him, because there's a lot of money in that.
How about this? If you could combine what Tom Crean has with what Archie Miller has, you have a great coach.
He'd be in a mental hospital.
Yeah, but he'd be a great coach. Most great coaches are in mental hospitals.
You'd have a guy. You'd have a kind of a sweaty guy that claps a lot, and both wants people to love him and doesn't care whether people hate him, all in the same breath. Yeah, he'd be institutionalized.
It'd be perfect. He could coach at Purdue. I'm just kidding.
He'd have no ability to recruit Indiana and an ability to recruit nowhere but Indiana all at the same time. I don't know how it'd work.
There you go. It'd be perfect. Yeah. It'd be a mess, just like we got now. And really, I have not given up hope on Archie. A lot of his demeanor at the end of games when things go wrong really bother me. And I would really like to know if he was forced to keep the people that were there when he got there or not, because I think that would tell me the answer to my question.
That would be very interesting. I'd like to know that too, because really the only guy who's left was Grant Galen, and Grant, I think, was released kind of, although he wasn't happy about it, I think it was what was best for him, because he was never going to play at Indiana.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right, Kent. I think we tried to wrap this up 30 minutes ago, but we're going to
We
try
did.
It again.
We did keep going.
All right.
I like
we will be back Thursday during the day. That sound good, Kent?
Yes, absolutely.
And we'll talk about Indiana drubbing Minnesota, about the imminent Wisconsin win coming, and of course, me and Kent will be live at the regionals when Indiana plays for the right to go to the Final Four in Atlanta in the regional finals, correct?
Ooh, the Final Four is in Atlanta just like it was in 2002.
Hey, there's one thing we do know, though, Kent. We'll be there. I'm not so sure about Indiana.
The coaches will be there. They have a hell of a good time at the Final Four because of the Basketball Coaches Association little soiree.
I just hope that they treat the media better than what they did in Louisville last year. We had basically hot dogs for the pregame meal.
Oh no!
I know it was
Look,
really nasty.
We're not difficult to please. You just put out a legitimate spread.
Well, it was hot dogs
and
salad. I mean, it had salad too. Because you can have like healthy salad, and then you can have hot dog, which is the worst thing you could actually possibly eat.
That's when I was traveling with the Rams. That's exactly how we rated all stadia. Was based upon the food.
Oh, yeah. That's why my favorite team is Xavier, because they give you Montgomery and ribs every game.
Nice. Jerry's Place down in Dallas, superb. But the best was the University of Phoenix Stadium out in Glendale. They had the nicest people, and their food absolutely wonderful. They served, because we were there at games were always at 1 local time, so they always had breakfast. And they also had lunch. They had quesadillas. They were wonderful. I love the people in Phoenix.
Yeah, and I've only covered one Notre Dame game. I could have got credentials, but the food just wasn't up to par for me to drive 4.5 hours to South Bend.
To hell with it.
I know. I'm not driving 4.5 hours for a football game that doesn't take that long. And my problem was at South Bend, it was too wet to park in the media parking, so we had to park way over here. Me and my photographer, we get out of the stadium. They played Navy. It's like 9 o'clock, and it took 2 hours. We had to go find the police to help us find my car.
They are, and those games are the longest damn college football games ever. At Notre Dame, I don't know whether it's because of the deal with NBC and a longer halftime and whatnot, but that's a 4-hour death march.
Yeah, I just did it so I could go see South Bend because I hadn't been there before.
Yeah.
It was worth it. It was cool. They were playing Navy. And of course, the last 5 minutes, you can go down on the field and everything. But I just remember I couldn't find my car.
Jeez.
But the South Bend police or the Notre Dame campus police were very nice.
That's happened to me, but not because I was in the press box.
It's because you were drunk, wasn't it?
might have had a few.
Well, then it's good that you couldn't find your car.
Exactly.
All right, Kent, we're going to wrap it up. We will be back Thursday. What do you say, about 2:30?
Sure.
All right, Thursday at 2:30 for a little Indiana-Minnesota recap. Make sure you check out Kent's book, Oops, on Amazon. You can also find him at KentSterling.com and at Kent Sterling on Twitter, right, Kent?
Very nice, Mike. I appreciate it.
All right. And you can follow me at Grueling Truth. And you can hear our podcast wherever you find podcasts, including iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify. Wherever you find podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Kent Sterling, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.